Now, the third question I had was on the outline. You said you usually do research on it. If you're right, I'm looking like, say, you're creating this for somebody that you don't necessarily know a lot about, their business or whatever. How do you
Right.
go about that? And how deep do you go?
Well, it depends on the complexity of the keyword and also how competitive the keyword is. So obviously, I will vary the level of intensity as far as building that outline depending on what I'm up against, right? So if I'm going up a highly competitive keyword, I'm going to invest a lot more time in that pre-work and that research and all that stuff to make sure that I'm bringing my A game. If it's something lower competition though, and I look at the competitors from a, let's call it a qualitative perspective, and I say, no one's really killing it here. So I think I just need to be 10% above what currently exists, then, you don't have to go as crazy. So it's highly variable based on competition. But I will say one thing that can help kind of improve the efficiency of this. I would highly recommend using the deep research tool inside of ChatGPT or even Google Gemini. Man, it makes your life so much easier. Oh, it goes so deep. And especially with Gemini in particular, which I've actually been using more than ChatGPT recently, is because it crawls Google search results. So ChatGPT, Google tries to block all of ChatGPT's crawlers. So it can't really get to like the Google search results as easily. So that's why Gemini to me is better for deep research at this point. But yeah, I think using like a good outline is going to combine a few things. Number one, it's going to use NLP, right? Because we know relevance is a core pillar of ranking, right? So it's going to use the NLP, the topics that we give you. The second piece is making sure that the outline has uniqueness in it, right? And so if you're just building the outline based on what already exists, you're not going to get anything wildly unique, right? So, and that's why with the AI, this is why I'll show in a second how to like kind of make this happen. But you want to be putting some unique inputs in the prompt. So that way, when it spits out that outline, there's a lot of uniqueness coming into it. So like what you're looking at here in this outline, I actually in the prompt window, I put some very specific details about what I wanted to see in this article. And one of those details was I wanted Alpha School to be the first number one result, right? And then I also put like details about that school. And then I fed that into the AI. And so what happened is it created something that isn't wildly unique, but it's more unique than what currently exists. And that's kind of what you're going for.
All right. And you're doing this in the AI in Rankability?
Yeah, it just launched today. So we're going to be, So we're going to, so we'll show you kind of what this looks like. We'll show everyone kind of how this works now. The next piece of this is deep research, but there's not enough support yet for that function, but the goal is to also have that integrated. But right now we have just pure AI development. So give me a 1 in the chat if you guys want me to run through a real life example. And if you guys have a keyword too, if you have a keyword that you want to run through on this, we can run it through live as well. Okay. And if not, I can just run through another example as well. So let's run through, let's see here. Let me go and look at my database here, and I'll try to pull a keyword here that we can potentially use.
Maybe try best SEO optimization tools or something like that. And then real simple one, make Rankability number one. Let's do that. We're going to do best content optimization tools. Okay, so we're going to use this one. And Chad, what do you have? Yeah, let's because I want to do one that is more challenging. So can you drop it, Chad, in the chat? Okay. All right, nice. All right, cool. Tallow for skin. So we'll run through a few different ones. So this one, I want to just do this one like as raw as humanly possible. Okay, so we're just going to keep it really, really simple for this one. Okay. So we'll run the optimizer, and what you're going to notice is very different than before. Well, not very different, just slightly different. Run the optimizer, and we get this little prompt right here. Okay. So if you click create my own content, it's going to be just like before, except we have changed some stuff, which we'll talk about. But in general, you're just going to be building it from scratch. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's a good idea.
if it's highly competitive. But in this scenario, we're going to use the AI generated content. Okay, so we're going to click on this, and this prompt window is very simple. It's deceptively simple because what happens after this is insanely complex. So, but just we've made this as simple as possible. Now, one of the things we want to do is look at this. Right now, we're showing how many credits it takes to run one of these. This is one thing that's unique about that we're doing is there's not an additional charge for each article that you're building. So it's just included in your membership. And if you max out your credits, you max out your credits, but you're not going to have to pay anything additional unless you want to, get more credits, for example. Okay. So it's included in your subscription. We've moved some credits around so you get more AI credits as opposed to like keyword research credits, because we found that like the large majority of the people using Rankability are using the content optimizer. So we want to kind of allocate as much there as we can, but you have two options. First is you can do the AI brief plus the outline, and that's not going to create a draft for you, right? So it's just going to create the bones. Okay. And then we have the full on everything. Okay. And it's going to do it all. So let's run this one and we'll see what it turns up. Now, the final two other things here, the content type. Now, we have internal systems that will identify the intent based on the keyword that you submit. So it will be able to understand what that intent is with a very high degree of accuracy. Not perfect, right? But I'd say, Simon, could you argue probably 90% accuracy with identifying intent?
Yes. And again, just to be clear with everyone, this is version 1.1. So as we go along here, we're going to refine this and try to get even more accurate, because I won't get too detailed into it, but like even with OpenAI API that we're using, you can start playing around with the temperature, and they're called top P settings. They're just super technical geek speak for how accurate and or simple you want the language. Like, for example, if you're doing something like a blog content, maybe you want a little bit more creativity, right? Because it's a blog content. Or something like a landing page, right? Or an e-commerce page is a lot simpler, right? You don't necessarily want it to really go off the rails and start kind of going into some weird tangent about some topic. So,
or be poetic.
Exactly. So again, we will refine this, but it is on the back end. There's a lot going on as far as the prompt engineering goes, but it is designed to match the search intent. But again, guys, your input is extremely valuable to us. So like Nathan likes to say, we want you to try to break this thing. Hopefully it won't, but if you use it and you see something that's a glitch or it doesn't make sense or whatever, please just shoot us a line, support at Rankability, or fill out the support form and let us know, because obviously this is a work in progress. That's my point. But continue.
Yeah. Okay. So before you run this, the next thing you want to do is obviously pick the appropriate content type. Just when in doubt, just go to Google. Okay. So I got like a stink bug flying around in my office, man. Okay. Let's see here. So we're going to run this through tallow for skin. And what I'm going to do is I just want to get a ballpark idea of the intent. Okay. So when I see this right away, that we've got an informational asset ranking number 1, that makes me lean towards a blog post. Then we've got another informational asset, another thread from Reddit. So the top 3 are showing, kind of informational types of assets that tend to rank well. Okay. So I would probably lean more towards that as opposed to trying to go super transactional, even though there is one here, there's also Amazon, but based on what I'm seeing, it looks like if we were to do the majority in this case, it probably going more of like, let's create a long form informational asset that demonstrates some sort of experience. That's where I would probably lean. Okay. So in this case, I would probably just go with the blog content just in that regard. Okay. You could probably do a buyer's guide too, but once again, this selection isn't a life or death decision because the AI is going to figure it out. Right. But it just helps if you can give it as best as you can. Now, this is the part, I do want to run this a little more, let's say, call it raw, but I cannot stress this enough how important this prompt window is. Okay. Like if you wanted to spit out something that isn't just highly relevant, but is also unique, you got to give it something to work with. Okay. Because otherwise, if you do it this way, all it's going to do is it's going to use the topics that your competitors are using. And then it's also going to look at, some of the stuff that it's crawled, and it's going to build something based on that. Now it's going to be comprehensive. It's going to be relevant. It's going to hit that relevance pillar perfectly. But like I said, we also have to have that uniqueness pillar. So when it comes to informational content or commercial content, you have to find how we can get some uniqueness in there. So in a case like this, for this particular keyword, if I had some data, I would probably put some data in here. If I had some unique characteristics that, some unique information about our products that maybe we're going to sell, that we could put in here. If it's going to be a listicle, I would want to make sure to say, put X brand number 1. Here's some details about this brand, right? So you put in that stuff. So I think the prompt window is 1,000 characters. Is that right, Simon? Is it 1,000?
1,000 words.
1,000 words. Okay. So 1,000 words. So it's significant. You can put a lot in there. And I would highly recommend doing that. Okay. So, but for the sake of the argument, let's just go straight raw. Now, based on my tests, Simon obviously has been testing this rigorously on the back end. On the front end, and hopefully it doesn't break, obviously doing things live here. You never know what's going to happen. But typically takes about 3 to 4 minutes for it to complete. Simon, have you seen on the back end about the same speed?
Yeah, it can take, depending on how extensive the content is as well. I've seen it take up to 10 minutes. So I always say, like, our target is 10 minutes or less. But I've seen it push 10 minutes or slightly over in some cases, like with some massive articles. So yeah, I mean, but that is the goal, 10 minutes or less, whenever possible. But again, it really depends on how competitive it is, how many NLP keywords are in there. And then we have a word count target that we're also trying to reach as well. So all those factors are playing part.
Okay, perfect. And so just so you know, one little detail here, which you'll notice is, like, you'll see the little AI icon here. That's just to signify that that draft was created with AI. So that's kind of just to show that distinction there. And then while this is building out, I'll show you a couple examples of what else has changed on the other side of this. Josh, please.
Yeah, my question on this is, can you go back and redo the additional information? So say you run an AI optimizer, have it do the draft, the outline in the first draft, but then you're like, oh, actually there's a chunk of information I forgot to post in the original prompt. Can I go back and run an original, like a redo basically, or do I need to run the keyword again?
That's a good question. Simon, how do you feel about that?
Yeah. So right now, you do have to run it again. Now, we keep in mind, once the AI is done and it's inside the optimizer editor, we do have the AI spell checker, as we like to call it. That's of course, it's having some issues right now, Murphy's Law. But okay, so yeah, if you highlight some text, the AI will come up, and you can actually play with some of this using the AI. But to answer your question, yeah, if you really wanted to redo it at this time, you'd have to run another keyword from the start. Now, the next version of this, and we're currently working on the back end, is you'll be able to actually go into the brief, and if you wanted to redo the AI based on the brief, let's say you change some things in the brief, or you make a new brief, you could do that from the existing AI, so you won't have to do it all over again. But right now, that's a work in progress. Right now, it's going to be just from the front end only. But yeah, to answer your question, that's going to be the next phase. Hopefully, that will be done in May. We hope to publish that, but I can't make any promises because that's extremely complex. Because essentially, the next version of this is going to be like right now, Nathan. If you click on the AI outline drop down, it'll just say create new outline. But we're going to be adding something that will say create AI content from outline. So literally, you'll be able to just, if you wanted to say, customize this outline, or improve it, or create your own, you'd then be able to actually create AI based on your own outline. Now, again, that's really complex because in our tests, there are a certain amount of headings that we have, and H2s and H3s, et cetera, as well as those bullet points. They're all very important because we're actually combining the NLP with the outlines. So it's very specific to get a specific rankability score. That's why we're doing this in the beginning. Just trust the AI because it's designed to give you a high score. But yeah, anyway, Josh, to answer your question, that is coming. But at this point, it's just going to be from the front end. Or once the AI is in the optimizer editor, you can then play around with, if you want, the AI settings. And again, there's a bunch of things here. If you don't like something grammar-wise, extending content, you can even give it a custom prompt. Like let's say you highlighted a couple keywords or a couple paragraphs, and let's say you wanted to, you looked at you sorted by unused, for example. You could say, okay, create some new paragraphs or try to use these missing NLP, naturally include these NLP keywords inside these paragraphs, something like that. But we're going to try to make this easier as time goes on, so it won't be as, complex as that.
Yeah, and I agree with Simon. I think, Josh, the best way to handle what you described is just to use the kind of micro AI in here. So, because especially like you wouldn't want to do a full rebuild if you just wanted to like fix one section, because then you would just be blowing credits essentially. So,
Yeah, and I'm kind of looking at it almost as like, it's maybe not exactly this, but it's, to me anyways, kind of close to a custom GPT. You want to input your client info, and I think you might have mentioned it before where you can, and maybe this is a feature in the future, but where you can upload PDFs, docs.
Yes. Yeah, actually, we're going to take that up even a higher notch than that. You're going to be, so the way you saw with the way like the prompting was, we're going to add a field, maybe up to 3 fields, where you can actually put in a URL. So put in the URL and we'll scrape it. So you put in an about page or a history page or something, and we'll just scrape it automatically, and that will get put into the asset. So yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Rate us, please. All right. So that was 5.5 minutes for that one. So I was timing it. Okay. Rate us, please.
All right. In your previous screen, you were highlighting a text showing about like extend, shorten, and I'm just curious, when you highlight, does he recognize all these NLP words? Like I see it's slightly different colored NLP. If I click, let's say, extend, shorten, would he actually recognize these are the NLP words?
Well, it will do its best to try to retain, but I would be careful using the like standard templated options, because if you're if you want to try to retain as many of the topics that you've covered in there, I would definitely use a custom prompt. So I would say something like, revise this paragraph, make sure you don't change the primary topics in here. Keep talking about the same topics, but add some details about this one school, right? So I would go much more custom to try to retain it, because it's a little bit riskier when you go the templated route, is what I'm saying. So I'll tell you, like, for me, when I use this, it's almost always using the custom window, right? Because I don't know, maybe I'm a control freak. I don't know what it is, but I just like having that freedom to do that. So yeah. Is that, yeah. Go ahead, Simon. Yep.
On that note, though, we are actually going to be working on, I've already talked with the team, and we're actually going to come up with a custom prompt, because we now have the AI content where, let's say, because sometimes the rankability score, and I've seen this sometimes, like obviously we have a target that we want to hit, that optimal score underneath the rankability score, but I've seen certain situations where it's just below. So it's not always going to hit the rankability score. And again, that's usually the AI just being smart, because let's say that there's you have a word count target of 1,200 words, but there's 100 keywords. The AI will do what it thinks is best. Even though we're saying try to use as many of these NLP keywords naturally, it doesn't want to keyword stuff, which is exactly what we don't want either. But let's say we want to bump it up a little bit. we are going to come up with a custom prompt for that drop-down window in the AI spell checker there, where you'll be able to select the entire content. And like Nathan said, because we don't want to, because right now what'll happen is if you try to rewrite this, Radis, you're right. Sometimes it'll, or like Nathan said, it'll sometimes get rid of the NLP keywords we're trying to keep. And so you're in this endless loop. But the custom prompt we're going to do is like basically keep the exact content as is, but try to naturally expand it using the unused NLP keywords. So literally we're going to try to create this as one click button. So you don't have to even worry about a custom prompt. You can literally say, okay, I want to improve a little bit, maybe bump it up by 10 or 15 points and let the AI do its thing. And that way it won't start basically replacing NLP keywords with other NLP keywords. It'll simply just keep the ones that are there and expand upon it. That's another option that we're going to be creating here, because it'll be really helpful if you need to bump up any type of content with that.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. And one little like super dorky feature just to show you guys, like this is on my dream list, is just to be the ability to drag and drop like this. I just love being able to do this. Like, so it's such a small little detail, but just like so nice when you're creating content. Josh, please.
So another question on the prompt. So I don't know if this is just taking it to a certain model, or how the process goes, but can you tell it to fetch data? Like in my prompt, could I say, research this or find data on this?
It's tricky because that would require search and that would require deep research, one of those functions. And the way that like the training material that we're using is from existing AI training data, right? So if there is data available, it can certainly pull it, but I would be careful to trust it, right? And you would have to make sure that that's actually real, because even with deep research, I've run a lot of deep research where it shows the data and I go and fact check and the data's wacky. It makes it up sometimes. Still, even with that, it still hallucinates. So, and that's why, yeah, it's tricky is what I'm saying. So I would I would probably try to collect your own data and feed it into it just to be on the safe side if I were you. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah. I think stacking the deep research with it is probably a good idea. Yeah.
And just one more thing I also want to mention, based on what Radis was asking, Nathan, if you just let's say just highlight the paragraph there, including the H tag for that one section there, like, yeah. And if you go to the drop down, you go, let's say expand content. Okay, extend content. I just want to be clear that you can actually, what you'll see is in the options, you will be able to actually, you see how it says below, insert below selection. So this won't actually replace that. If you put insert below selection, it will actually put it below that. So any of the NLP that's already there won't go away. So if you click on insert below, for example, in this case, it'll just put that literally below the existing. So it's literally extended that content with what it thinks is relevant. So it does work in that way. And sometimes, like you'll see, funnily enough, is that even though we didn't say anything, if you click somewhere else, so it's all unhighlighted, if you just click somewhere, you can see automatically in those new 3 paragraphs, it actually nailed 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 NLP keywords naturally without even having to ask it, because those are relevant. The AI knows those just happen to be relevant keywords anyway. Do you get what I'm saying? So even though it actually didn't increase the rankability score, that's because you probably used that. It already
covered those. Yeah.
Covered those. But I just want to mention that it has that ability where you can actually, you don't have to replace the content. You can simply, pick and choose. If you want to expand a certain paragraph, you can just insert it below without having to worry about replacing it completely. So there's a lot of possibilities with those selections. So if you guys want to play around with those.
All right. And then Josh, any other questions? Are you all good?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. So let's walk through the one that we did. So let's go ahead and see how it did here in a live environment. And so we can see, like I said, this is without any inputs. So this is not what I would recommend. Like this is going to be is pulling from existing training data. This is going to be pulling, using the keywords to try to develop something. But you can see, like, if we go and look at the competitors, we've got some hefty pages that we're up against, right? 3,000 words, 7,800, 11,000, 10,000. So we got a lot of words here and a lot of material to work with. And that's why it probably produced something so high, around that 3,400 words. And that's also why it took a little bit longer too. So it took 5.5 minutes. Based on what I'm seeing so far is about 3 to 4 minutes. So it took about a minute longer, but I think that's because of how intense of a topic this is. But what I would be interested to see is Chad was the one that submitted this one. So I'd be interested to see how accurate this is. But this is, like I said, this is as raw as it gets right here. So, and I personally, like, no matter how you develop this, no matter how much prompt engineering you use on the initial window there, I still highly, highly recommend treating this content as what I'm calling a pre-draft. Don't even call it a first draft. It's a pre-draft. It's the building blocks of a good draft. Because in particularly an example like this, like tallow for skin, I know that this falls under the your money, your life category. So you would want to have a subject matter expert come in here and verify that this is all legitimate and that the AI is not hallucinating or making things up, right? And which is always a possibility. So just, be careful, right? Especially when you're working with some of these types of queries, which I'm assuming is also a pretty competitive keyword as well. So, but yeah, not a bad first draft and a lot to work with. But like I said, to maximize this to the fullest extent, you're definitely going to want to use some human touch. Got to get that human touch in there. Now, a couple other things I want to show you is, actually, you know what, Simon, how about, can you just describe some of it doesn't seem like a lot of changes have occurred here, but a lot has changed. Can you kind of just describe some of the things that kind of shifted right here?
For sure. So first of all, obviously we completely redesigned and rethought about the outline editor itself. We want it to be a lot more click and drag, and like you can just start typing, whereas before it was kind of clunky and we had like the little edit boxes and all that kind of stuff. So the idea behind this is we wanted to function like the optimizer editor, where you can literally start typing right away. So basically, if this was blank, you could literally just start typing the H1 and then H2s and everything else. Now you are limited, as you can see in the top, the bar. You can do bullet points, you can do numbered lists. You can include a link in there, and only headings, obviously, because this is an outline editor. Now, there's a couple unique things here. So first of all, you can click and drag and drop H2s, or you can even sections. If you select sections and you want to move them around, you can click and drag and drop. The one thing you cannot click and drag and drop is the H1, for obvious reasons, because the H1 should always be at the top. So we just thought, you know what, this is SEO, obviously optimization. The H1 should always be at the top, therefore it is. Also, if you highlight, if you try to highlight, let's say an H2 on the like, or an H3, and you go to the heading, you'll see that you can't make it an H1, because obviously, there should technically only be one H1 tag per outline, right? So per page.
This is the, and just to clarify, this is the area where we're going to be more like a dictatorship. Okay, so there's certain things that we just are going to make laws in the tool. And so having multiple H1s, yes, Google claims it's okay, but Google's also claimed that AI was okay too at some point, and then they start penalizing people. So just, we're going to stick with what has been proven to work, and that it is overwhelmingly proven that having one H1 tag, or actually, sorry, let me back that up. Having just an H1 tag in general is something that you should have. I think it's like, I did a case study on this, and it was like 96% of top ranking pages had they had an existing H1 tag, like just one. And then the large majority had only the quantity of one, right? They didn't have 2, 3. So just in general, this is one of those laws that we're going to be pretty strict about. So anyway, continue, Simon.
Exactly. So another thing is keep in mind, like if Nathan, if you want to click on the AI drop down, and if you wanted to create a brand new one from scratch, you can click create new AI outline, and it'll usually take about a minute. Now, the cool thing is here is, let's say you didn't add some specifics when you first generated this. You can do it. You can do it here, because what we've found through a million tests at this point is that if you can add the additional information to the outline, it works a lot better with the AI than if you try to add it after the content has already been written and try to kind of almost stuff it in there, because it's just smarter that way. So again, this is a very unique keyword. I have no idea what I could come up with off the top of my head as far as specifics, but like, let's say you had a specific brand in mind or something like that. You could say something like, make Gotch tallow brand the number one recommended brand, and literally it would do that in the new outline. It would create, it would just understand that, okay, what you're trying to do, and do that. But even if you just click, sorry, go ahead, man.
Well, I was just going to add to that side, because like one thing, just based on the intent of this, because we have that 1,000-word prompt window, I would load it up with statistics, like tons and tons of statistics, because you're going to have to prove a lot of these points. Like, for example, it provides deep hydration for dry skin and dry patches. Well, there needs to be proof of that claim, right? So I would load up all of the citations in the prompt window. So that way, when it's formulating the content, it will say, according to the CDC, this and then it will include those statistics and then prove that point even further. So that way, now it looks like you just created an article for Healthline, right? So that's much better than just this, where it's like making all these wild claims, but there's no evidence, right? So anyway, continue, Simon.
Yeah. So again, it's pretty simple. And then obviously you can, at this point, you can just generate more AI outlines and then go from there. But like I said before, specifically to Josh, we are working on actively right now. It's extremely complex, but trying to make it so that you can customize this, create a new one, and literally just be able to create a new AI content that will just automatically be put into your optimizer editor if you weren't happy with the first one or whatever. But one mountain at a time. So it's actually really simple. There's not really much to say about this. It's super simple, but we did that on purpose. We wanted to make this like almost deceptively simple so that you can't really screw it up. I mean, you can't put in paragraphs and stuff like that in there. You can only stick to headings, bullets, and numbers for a reason. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. The other thing I will mention is, if you did want to copy this, for example, if you click under the more, it's this little thing, but let's say you have this and you copy the outline and you wanted to paste this inside your optimizer editor for, let's say you had a writer, you wanted to do this for you, you can do so here. Now, what's interesting about this, you'll see the rankability score just with the outline is already at 70. And that's because the AI had purposely put so many of those NLP keywords, because our AI prompts on the back end does that on purpose. That's why, when we do have the option of when you'll be able to kind of, play with your own outlines, create your own outlines, we're definitely gonna, even when we're doing our own content creation, we trust the AI a lot. Like, you just got to kind of give it room to move, because in our tests, it's like humans can screw this up more than the AI can screw this up. Because if you start to really, delete some of these bullets and stuff like that from an AI generated outline, it will impact, once we have that feature to generate content from the outline, the resulting AI generated content, but Nathan, like he said, it's a fine line between being complete dictators and like not giving the freedom to play around with these things, because we know we want to give you guys the best SEO results possible, but also giving you the freedom to do what you want to do, and it's still up to you, right? But another thing before I forget that I want to mention, it's a little thing, but in the optimizer keyword list now, if you click on one of the keywords, Nathan, we basically have, well, actually, no, that's the first one. So click on any other one, because that's the exact match. So we've eliminated the delete delete keyword function. So no longer will you be able to delete a keyword. And the reason is because we've had a lot of people come back and say, hey, I deleted a keyword. I want to get it back now, but once it's gone, it's gone. So basically we have this ignore feature now, which we think it just makes a lot more sense. So if you press ignore, what happens is that keyword gets dropped to the very bottom of this list, and you'll see it. It'll just be grayed out like this, and it won't be counted. And if you for example, if you copy all the keywords, it will ignore it. But this at least gives you an idea of what you've let's say ignored, or what you've you're getting to ignore from the NLP list. If you ever want to
and it doesn't influence the score, right, Simon? Just to clarify, it does not influence the score if you do this.
Correct. Yeah. So if you restore it, again, it'll say you want to restore it. So again, now keep in mind the reason obviously it's an important keyword, whatever you picked, right? So it went up by 2 because that's a keyword that should be there. But if you remove that keyword, it's no longer going to be counted, right? Because you're ignoring it. That's the whole idea. But I'm only mentioning this because it's just a slight change we've also made. But by and large, my biggest suggestion is just don't even bother. Unless you have sometimes, for example, I've seen on e-commerce pages in some of our tests, there'll be some nonsense words that'll be thrown in there because let's say they're really the format is really bad, and they'll be combined together, and it's just, it looks like crap. And so sometimes maybe just you want to ignore it in some situations, but by and large, it's just better to just leave it there and just don't put it into your content if you don't want to. Again, you don't have to get 100%. Most of the rankability scores, the goal is to get above optimal, and in most cases you're going to see 64 plus. But sometimes, like I mentioned, it won't be. You'll see it. Sometimes the AI will come back with slightly below, and you might have to improve a little bit. But another thing too is, I know we've talked about this for a long time, but now if you search like Nathan's doing by unused keywords, if you copy them, it'll only copy the unused keywords. If you wanted to, let's say, for whatever reason, let's say you put in the NLP, say, include these in these paragraphs, or try to naturally include these in the paragraphs. That'll give you an option to do that. But also keep in mind that, like I mentioned, we're going to be working on what I mentioned earlier, which is a button where you don't have to worry about doing this manually. Again, it's just you just select the entire content. It won't touch the existing NLP keywords. It just expand it with the unused keywords in mind. So again, this is a process, but those are kind of the major things that have gone on as far as the updates, the outline editor and the optimizer.
Yeah, and then the next version of this is going to have the crawling ability, right? When you do the prompt, you'll be able to crawl the inputs, whatever URLs you put in, right, Simon? Or at least what we're going to attempt to, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's another challenge too, because you're talking about the scraping ability.
Yeah, if we could put it in an about page or a company page and be able to pull that information.
Yeah, and that's going to be again a work in progress, because even with our scraping, like if you guys ever use under the more, the import URL content, under the more, if you just click on more, you can put a URL in here and scrape it. But because there are literally countless types of website formats and designs, it's near impossible to try to, because it's very easy to underscrape, I should say, a page, or overscrape it, and it starts getting rid of important content. So sometimes you guys will see, I'm sure, if you try to import URL content, I'll have some of the headers. You gotta, do some editing to it. But we'd rather do that than overdo it, because we've overdone it in the past, and all of a sudden it's removing intro paragraphs and everything else. So when we add that URL feature to the front end of the AI, It's going to be a process of hoping that the AI can understand what we want in there and what we don't want in there. But that's our problem. But
Which
yeah,
is
another
why
thing
the,
is,
well, I was going to say that's why the prompt window is probably a better option, to be totally honest, because you can control it better.
exactly. And I found that the more specific in that prompt window you can be, the better. So if you literally say a company name, colon, Gotcha SEO LLC, it's bluntly clear. The more clear you can be with those AI prompts, the better the results will be. If even when you're like copying and pasting some text from, let's say, an about page or something, actually maybe run that test. That's maybe a test, like do something like AC repair, I don't know, Phoenix or something like that. This will be a good example of I think Marquise, did he put something in the chat? Well, maybe we'll do his. He put, digital photo booth, Las Vegas. That's perfect.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
And then maybe Google that and see if we could get an actual business that we can put their information in there, just to give an example of how this works.
Grab one of these guys up here.
Yeah.
Okay, and while we're doing this, Josh, do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry to bombard y'all with questions.
No.
What about the prompt? Would you suggest we should put copywriting rules in there? So like, if we wanted to avoid the generic in this world or in today's digital age, should we include that stuff, or is it kind of already baked into what you guys have created?
I think it would be wise, any type of like editorial standards that you have with whatever client or business you're working with, I would put it in there for sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think Simon you can answer this better, but he's worked a lot to try to engineer to prevent a lot of the stuff you see, but obviously AI is AI. So yeah, I mean, Simon, I know that's something you guys have been really working on, the team, but like, we can't prevent all the weird kind of ways that AI tends to formulate sentences, right?
Correct. Like, unfortunately, AI, like you said, AI is going to AI. And, there are limits to this. Like for example, if you were writing, I don't know, a marketing page and you said like, write like Frank Kern, it will take that into account, but it's still going to do what it does. So there's so many different there's so many different use cases that I'm sure we've missed even in our testing. That's why you can try some of these ideas, but it's still going to be, the AI is still going to be AI for the most part, but again, it's a great question. You should definitely try pushing it to limits, Josh, and let us know if you come across.
Yeah. If the Frank Kern voice comes out in like 2026 or 2027, I'll be here to try that out. So
yeah,
that's what's next.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think for this one, I'm just going to put, just some kind of FAQs in here. And we'll make sure that the brand for this one, so Smash Booth Net. Okay. Oh, we're still on the FAQ page. Let's go back here. Smash. So one thing I would specify here, and I'm kind of doing this here raw and live, but I would say something like, this is a commercial / service page and put the brand in here, Smash Booth Interactive, and say, they're located in Las Vegas. And then go in here and see if we can pull anything else. We'll call this here smashbooth.net. So I'll put that in there as well. And then I'll put this.
And I would also remove raising the bar from because it'll probably think maybe it's part of the company name at the top.
Okay. All right. And then we'll try to see if there's anything else here that's wildly unique about them.
Even an address or phone number, usually local pages have that.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, we got some testimonials. So I'll grab a couple of these. my ability to type immediately disappears when you guys watch me. So just bear with me as I do this. I have no ability to think. Okay, here we go. So I don't. This is the tricky part. I think we definitely need to have this, like, Simon, based on kind of how I'm doing this right now, be able to like expand this window so you can see.
Just grab the bottom right.
Okay, there we go. Yes, perfect. It's hard to see. All right, there we go. Okay. Probably also one thing maybe we should add too is showing the amount of words, like once we get to the limit. So that way you just so we know. So let's just work with this. I think this is probably enough inputs, considering this is probably not wildly competitive, I would imagine. So you probably don't need to go as crazy, but this is just for the general idea. Like, this is the way I would be doing it, is like, the thing that's cool now is, like, prior to AI, the time investment was writing the content, right? Like, that was the time investment. So what you should do is, all that newfound time that we have, you should invest a portion of it into this part, which is getting the prompt right, which is still significantly less time than writing it. Trust me, it takes a lot longer to write it. So, but spend 5 minutes doing this, because it's going to make such a massive difference. Okay. So let's run this one through, and just for my own nerdiness, I will be going and timing this one again. Okay, we got that one going. All right. Marquise, please, question.
Yes, a little off topic is about the question I asked yesterday regarding that GMB profile. So the thing is, like I said, my business is currently hidden. I'm in a workspace. I have a desk, meetings. It's a legit business here, right?
Yeah.
But is that still within Google's guidelines or no? Right? Because I know you said it's a little risky, but I'm like, I get the risky part, but it's still legit. It's not me trying to beat the system.
Yeah. Right? No, I mean, the truth is there's a lot of businesses that are in shared office spaces.
Yeah.
So that's technically not against Google's guidelines. And you'll see tons of Google business profiles that have shared office spaces. What they don't like is like what we're doing for Rankability, which is I have an address in St. Louis, but I can technically go there to pick up mail, but we don't have like a desk, right?
Yeah.
So they don't like that. And so as long as you have the ability to walk in and you have maybe a little bit, I don't know if you have signage, that would certainly help your case. But
yeah, I have a desk, I have lockers, meeting rooms that it's pretty legit. That's why I did it.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there may be because I would keep the address at my residential,
right,
where I'm currently living, but there's no businesses around where I stay.
Yeah, right,
and it's pointless to even keep it over there. But which is why I came in a different area. But I have like reviews I don't want to lose, and I want to update my address, but I know it could be a little risky, even though I am being legit with it.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends ultimately on what verification they force you into. Because like occasionally you might get the postcard verification, which is rare these days, but it can still happen. Yeah. I did a phone call verification where they called the phone number at the location, pick it up, and you dial, you put in the code, and that verified it perfectly fine. So it didn't need video. So it's not always going to be the video. The ones that seem to cause the most friction are the video verifications.
Yeah.
They seem to cause a lot of problems. I don't know. Like, it's one of those things where like, I would love to tell you like, yeah, go for it. But like, there's just that part of me that's like, there's that percentage where like Google can be annoying. That's like I don't know what they're going to do. And it's weird because the algorithms that the Google business profiles use, they're not that accurate. Like, they're pretty accurate, but they make a lot of mistakes. And the problem is when you go and you appeal it, then the manual people are also like, no, you're done. Like, it's like, well, what do you mean? So I don't know. It's hard. I mean, it sounds legit. I think you should be fine, but just
Just don't know. Yeah.
it's just risky. It just is. And I mean, I guess worst case scenario, like let's say they don't allow you to do that essentially. You could just maybe revert back to the other one. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, the whole purpose of me getting a spot was for that play, right? So
Yeah.
I guess I got to take the risk and see if it works or not.
Yeah, and I would say, are you trying to be trying to show the address?
Correct.
That's the sticky part.
That's the sticky part. Okay.
That's the sticky part because they'll say like unless you're servicing clients at your office, then that's where it gets tricky, right? And like even if you do, maybe you do have some clients coming in doing some meetings, some proposals and stuff. But if you're an agent, like I'm assuming it's for the agency, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're an agency, they know based on all of their data that agencies typically are digital, number one. Number two, they're typically going to the business to sell stuff in most cases locally. Now, you don't usually have the business coming to you. I mean, it happens sometimes, but normally you're going in to the business. So that's the part I'd be a little concerned about. And once again, if you have, so assume you got an address in some sort of downtown area or something. Okay.
Correct.
So you could technically still do service area though, and still get good results. So
is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. You can for sure. So I would just be careful is all I'm saying. Yeah.
That's what your opinion. I know. I mean, you're more educated. Well, you have more experience than me, so
yeah. No, I'm definitely not more educated. No. I just made a lot of mistakes. So yeah, that's my education.
That's education.
Yeah. Okay. So that one took 3 minutes and 41 seconds. So once again, that's more in range of what I've expected with these. That last one, I think because it was 3,400 words, that's why it took a little bit longer to formulate. So let's take a look, see how it did. Did beautiful. As far as relevance, as far as optimization out of the gate, really, really solid. The word count, beautiful, right in range. Like that's just like really where I want it to be, is like just right in that sweet spot. Not too long, not too short, just right there. Now let's see specifically how it did with the brand. So Smash Booth, and we'll see if it was able to like put anything in here about the brand. Okay, perfect for all occasions. North Las Vegas. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, it's getting pretty specific about some stuff too. Looking. Oh, and it's got some unique selling propositions in here. Man. I'm not trying to yeah.
Smash Booth. Why is Smash Booth everywhere?
Because that's the brand we put in there.
Okay.
Yeah. So this would just whatever brand you put in, it's gonna do it that way. So because in most, just based on knowing the intent of this keyword, this is going to be a commercial page typically. Right. So if you want it to be about your brand, right? That's the point. So this is one I just pulled from the Google Business Profile. That was ranking. So
yeah, one thing I want to point out is you notice it didn't, like in this situation, I remember you put in a couple testimonials. It didn't actually put those testimonials in there. Now keep in mind, this is where the kind of some of a, I don't know about saying limitations, but the AI is smart because it knows we're dealing with a very small word count. So it has to pick and choose what it decides to put in that word count. So for example, in this example, those two testimonials, we can easily, put those in after, but it probably looked at the word count for those two testimonials and went, well, if I do this might put us over the edge of the word count. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, sure. Again, there's going to be limitations like this, but, again, the nice thing is it does, again, because that's what we're dealing with. We want to get a high rankability score, be within an optimal word count range that makes sense, usually towards the lower end. And obviously then try to incorporate as much of the information as possible. But, again, it's for a smaller word count, it's also going to be like I said, it's gonna have to decide sometimes what it includes and what it doesn't. So you want to try to you do want to make sure that whatever you put into the additional information is like the most important additional information.
Yeah, I was gonna add too. One thing I've been noticing is if you put in a keyword that's like digital photo booth location, like in that way, it will try to do that in the content. Like it will try to use that exact variant. And so I would just kind of as a small tweak when you guys put the keyword in, I would try to use a very natural variant. So I would do like digital photo booth in Las Vegas. So that way, when it formulates the content, it's not trying to like jam in that natural, variation in there. But one thing that really stands out to me on this, and it's just cool to see because we've been talking about this for well over a year now about these different principles. But like, notice it's not over optimized. It's just enough. It's just hitting these topics 1-2 times. Nothing aggressive, right? But it's actually hitting the brand quite a bit, which makes sense, right? And so you should be hitting the brand quite a bit when this is about your brand. You should be talking about it. Now this, I think it went a little far, maybe with mentioning the brand. I think it needs to chill out a little bit. But that's where the human element comes in. So I would have our editor come in here and tone it down a little bit before it goes live on the site. But we're talking maybe 10 minutes of editing, and then this thing can be live on the site. So that means within, and then also if we assume visuals and dev, we're talking probably 30 minutes to get this up and running, like a brand new page per se.
Now, what you just sketched up, this could be for the homepage, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, if this is their core service, then yeah.
Definitely. Okay, because I'm looking at like conclusion. As it sounds like.
Yeah, and that's where like
the human touch.
Right. Yeah, that's there where like you just want to get rid of that definitely, and have it more direct response driven. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That was it. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So that's it, guys. That's what we've been working on. It's simple on the surface, but that's what we want. We're trying to make things as simple as possible and cutting out all the, let's just say the fluff. We'll say that much. But I'm going to be definitely showing more use cases of this very soon as I start to deploy it in other campaigns. But yeah, any other questions for me, guys? Any other questions? And like I said, please beat it up. Do your best. All right.
One quick question to Josh, if you don't mind. So Josh, so if you can go to the homepage again, Nathan, for optimizers, and just like go to the like you're running a keyword, doesn't matter, whatever, SEO optimization tool or something. Just want to see so there should be a limit. Go use AI generated content. There should be a limit in the provide additional information box. So it shouldn't allow you to go beyond that. So just how did you get that? How did you get that pop up, which obviously is a glitch?
So I, my original prompt was like 8,000 characters, so I had to chop it down a little bit.
Right.
But I chopped it down to like 5,600, and then I generated it, and it will generate for a quick second, but then it will show that little error that I screenshotted and sent in the chat.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if that's because I tried it before. So I basically created one with like a bad prompt, let's just call it.
Right.
Did it, reran a new one, and then tried it with a shortened additional information section that's under the 6K limit.
Okay, cool.
And then, because if you go over 6K, you'll get a little red message at the bottom, like max limits 1,000 characters.
Exactly.
And it won't let you generate it. But I cut it down to like 5,600, then generated it, and it loads for a second, and then I get that little error that comes up.
Okay, did you see if a credit got pulled when you ran it?
I'm not sure. I don't.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely verify. No, we'll try to obviously fix that as soon as possible. And just one last thing, guys. Obviously, right now, when you are running an AI optimizer, you can only run one at a time. We will in the future give you the ability to stack them. So if you want to put a few in there at the same time, so you can just kind of walk away and let a few for now, you can just do one at a time, because we're also kind of seeing, as far as resources go, we don't want to crash our AI at this point. So we're just being a little bit more cautious at this point. But any suggestions, errors, glitches, like, really appreciate, just let us know, so we can make this better.
Right. Well, that's it. Any other questions, guys? Chad, please.
Hey, Nathan, real quick. I just had a question. Is there plans for either a API or connection with Zapier with Rankability?
Yeah, I got that question. I got that question today about an API, and the answer is yes. So that's definitely something we're going to do. I've gotten quite a few requests for that. So yes. I don't know when. Can't make that promise, but definitely yes, for sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I did a couple tests with our AI writer, and we went basically from like scores of 36 without pulling over the NLP keywords to 90 plus with using them. So clearly it it helps a lot. And then being able to integrate that into an automation would be that'd be huge for us.
Yes. Yep. For sure. Definitely in the pipeline for sure.